The reason we did the very first Seattle Gay Pride Week was not so much to protest anything, it was to say, here we are, and we're not in the closet, we're not ashamed of who we are, we're out and proud. And that was a big statement in 1974, obviously. My name is David Neth, and I've lived here in Seattle about 40 years. The picture of the picnic, for us as a gay group to be out in public at that picnic was the first event of that kind for those couple years there. I was in the middle of the very first Seattle Gay Pride Week in 1974. Seattle being up in the corner of the country and sort of away from everything, I don't know, it was its own little island of misfits and various people that were more accepting. We had just started the Gay Community Center at that time up on Capitol Hill, and I was one of two co-directors. The goal was to make sure it was a Gay Pride Week, a whole week of events. It was culminating at the Seattle Center with a gay inn at the Seattle Center, which in 1974, that was a big to-do. To be out in public was pretty hard. You could lose your job very easily, and there was no protections. And ultimately, the group that was in the public's eye would be younger people like myself at the time, because we had the least to lose. I mean, we weren't like professional jobs at that point. We had a banner that we hung up across between two flagpoles down there. It said Gay Pride 1974, or Lesbian and Gay Pride 1974, or something like that. That was spray painted on a torn up sheet because we didn't have any money. And I think we had about 40 people. And then the tourists sitting around on the outside who just stumbled onto this event had no idea it was going to be there. The biggest challenge back then was money. Everything was on a shoestring budget. I mean, in the community center at $100 a month, we could barely get the rent up every month, and had to do fundraisers in the bars and things like that. Somewhere in my papers I have that our total budget ended up that we spent $536 for the entire week for all the permits and everything else that we did, and the posters printing. And it was very emotional for me to see a gay pride flag hanging at the top of the Seattle Space Needle 40 years after all this started for us in Seattle.